you know, it starts with a picture, it starts with an idea, it starts with a concept. And from that concept, I guess, people appear. Hi, everybody. Surprise! It's me, Pseudo. It's Monday. It's the MMOBuff podcast. It is episode 30. Holy cow. I don't even want to know how many episodes I've been on now for the various shows. I think my head would implode in a space-time continuum. It would just go...
Not in the fingers, sorry.
Not enough. You might be right. I'm thinking about all the numbers and all the things, and I've only missed a couple shows here and there. I think you might be right. But yes.
Use my toes.
You could use your toes, and it would be rather funny. Can you do it on the stream? Can you like lift your foot up? No, don't go there. All right, let's moving back on topic. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the MMOBuff podcast. As you can see, I am joined by two individuals who you may or may not recognize. This is due to the fact that one, Mizpah is sick, and two, I bring to you the diametrically opposed dynamic bearded duos known as Occi and Alris. Say hello. Respect the beard.
Indeed.
Yo. Just gonna say fire-breathing dragon dinosaur thing. Okay. So, yeah. I am joined by these two individuals, and my hair is driving me absolutely crazy today. So, actually, just throw it behind me, and then I won't have to worry about it. But yes, I am joined by these two for a couple of reasons. One, they are helping me out tonight because Mizpah is ill. Two, they are the diametrically opposed dynamic bearded duo. If you've had a chance to witness the destruction, the mayhem, the opposition from our newest YouTube-only podcast, which is known as the MMOBuff Perspective. I need to let me just restart this show. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Rewind. Go.
Right. Anyway, what is going on is we have a new series that comes out on YouTube only because, my gosh, trying to do all the shows all the time would probably kill me if I didn't find some way to spread them out. But the perspective looks into other games and genres that a lot of people are interested in, but may just want some more information. So, for example, we covered a 4X Endless Legend, and if you haven't seen it, head up to YouTube and check it off.
This is what happens when you don't sleep for 3 days.
I have slept for 3 days.
Yeah.
I have 2 straws, though, to help me out.
And so she may have slept for 3 days solidly, but that was 3 days ago.
It's been a while.
It has been a little while, but that's okay. So tonight I am joined by these two so that we can look into a topic that should seem self-evident. I slept, BC Larius. I woke up 36 hours ago, I think. Something like that. But I had so much that I wanted to get done. It was crazy. So I wanted to make certain I got it done because that literally leaves me free for the entire week to play games, review games, and to, of course, stream. I wonder what I'll be streaming. So, yes. Yeah. So anyway, tonight, we're talking about second chances. Now, this, like I said, topic seems self-evident because it is based on a question that someone posed to me, and I kind of stopped and I went, well, yeah, it's kind of a given, but it doesn't seem to be as given as I thought it was. And that is the topic of second chances when it comes to games in general. In specific, the games that have iterations that dramatically change gameplay. So we're not just going to be sitting here talking about MMOs. We're also going to be talking about things like Civ. You know, it was one type of gameplay, and then they drastically changed it by bringing in, gods and emperors and religion. Then they drastically changed it with their trade route mechanics. We have an awful lot of things that are out there that are constantly changing, constantly evolving, but people seem to have 2 sides of a coin they sit on. They either sit on the, I'm going to continue to try it every time something new comes out, or the, I've tried it, don't like it, I'm gone syndrome. Now, this was actually inspired by a question that was asked to me about it, but it was also further inspired. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see it yet, but there was a brilliant YouTube piece done about World of Warcraft and apathy. And it was about how we have new content released through World of Warcraft. People resub, see the content, and then stop subbing altogether.
Yeah.
And yes, Castile Cupcake, I'm sure we could sit on a coin for you. Not certain what it would produce, but we could try it.
Shame.
Yeah, uncomfortable.
It would be slightly uncomfortable. And my nose itches. Oh, wow. Sorry. So let me ask you both this. Would you guys go back to a game if you've tried it once and you found it to be not your cup of tea? Or would you just basically throw it over to the side and say, I'm done, moving on? Because there are a lot of games out there. Not enough time, too many games.
Depends on the game.
That's true. I've also seen a couple different derivatives of this particular topic in my own gaming history. For one, like a game that was great in its first iteration, and then it came out with a sequel. And the sequel is either worse than the original game or just a little bit less than. I might stick with the one that's a little bit less, the one that's just worse. They hurt the whole series or the whole brand of that name. And if it's like the third in the series and then it tanks completely because they went a completely different way, you're losing an audience. And
what was that?
At
Sorry.
that point,
Master
of Orion 3.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that there.
The game that doesn't exist. The edition that doesn't exist.
I would say the same is true with other strategy games I've played, such as Empire Earth, which is sitting on my desk, where the first one was pretty revolutionary. Its time, the second one was an improvement, the third one, they changed everything and it tanked horribly, crashed into the ground, burnt, fell over, sank into the swamp. And at that point, I was done with that series. And that's a danger where you build up enough momentum that you eventually crash and burn, and then I wouldn't necessarily give you a second chance, because you proved yourself already. You proved that you understood the formula, and then you changed the formula and failed. Whereas other games, like Elemental, went through iterations, and it was not great to start. And I stuck with it and gave it multiple second chances, because they kept saying, here, try us again for free. I didn't have to buy anything. And that drew me back, the not having to pay for it. And kept giving them second chances, and they improved the experience.
It's where as well, like free-to-play games, early access, you have more chance of convincing people to come back. Because if it's early access, well, they've already pumped up the cash, so they're not paying in again to come back. And free-to-play, well, you didn't really have to put money in initially to enjoy it. Maybe you did, but you didn't have to, and thus, if you want to go back, well, that's entirely risk-free as well. My personal one that happened was Marvel Heroes. It's a, pretty standard sort of Diablo-like, but with Marvel superheroes. This seemed an inherently cool idea to me initially, and I really didn't like it when I first played it, because I had original beta access, and it was way too easy and just quite boring. But I went back to it a couple of months ago and played the heck out of it, because they'd added a load of new stuff, they'd tightened up a lot of the game mechanics, they'd put in that sort of Diablo thing with the three difficulty levels. There was then further stuff to do along that, where you could do sort of terminals, which were like, here is a boss from the thing, but you just go through and hit the boss, or you had your wave defense, or your just general go out and defend the city.
Right.
They put in a load of new modes, loads of new heroes, and really tightened up the game mechanics, and it was a much better game. a
Well,
year down the line.
Well, see, that's the thing. When it comes to today's technology, when it comes to the different games and genres that are out there, one of the cool things to me is the fact that we do have online franchises now, which means you can. I mean, I remember back in the day, you'd go to the store, you'd buy the disc, you'd put the disc in, and sometimes it's a really tiny 3.5, sometimes it's a 5 1/4. But, back in the day, you would go and you would plug in, you'd install the game, and then if you wanted to, you could check for patches. You could check to see if there was an update. Yeah, you had to actually hand install these games. And you had to take the disc out and then put the next disc in and then take the disc out. Yeah, I'm talking proper discs and stuff.
Yeah. No. My formative years of gaming?
Tape?
They were on tape.
Yeah.
I had a Spectrum.
But at that time...
They were on tape.
But at that time, even though there was the interwebs, not many updates occurred. In fact, if you wanted the quote-unquote next iteration, you had to go buy the disc from the store again. Like, the one that stands out to me is Black and White. Fantastic game. Absolutely fantastic game. But boy, was it buggy. So you had these patches, which is great. But nowadays, we live in a society where it's almost expected that there will be iterative updates. There will be...
Zero patch.
Yeah, there is day zero patches for games now because it seems like, we need to hit a deadline. We need to get this stuff pressed. We need to get it out. So even if it's digital, they have to press it. But they have to create the first install and then everything patches on top of that. And you can expect, I just bought this game. I'm going to install it and I'm going to sit there for 3 hours while it downloads, verifies, patches. Downloads, verify, patches. Now I can play the game. But because of this, I personally am seeing a trend in games. And believe me, if you don't agree with me, correct me. Tell me I'm wrong. I appreciate that. But what I have seen is that it seems like games that have a slightly solid franchise, a common one being MMOs, when they bring out patches that revolutionize their game strategy, it seems like because of the fact that they're bringing out new content, they feel they have to completely revolutionize their game strategy. Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems to me just because you have, I have to go back to WoW for this for an example. WoW had a new expansion come out, Burning Crusade, completely changed up the talent point system because they added extra levels and they had to figure out a way to make it balanced and everything else that goes with it. Mm-hmm. Every single patch, or I should say expansion, completely changed the game. Not necessarily for the better, not necessarily for the worse, not debating that. I'm just saying it's almost become this expected thing because they're one of the well-known ones in the market. And then you have games that seem to fly under the radar with their patching, and they may have started out rocky as hell. I'm looking at you, Secret World.
No doubt.
And then they got patched, and now is incredibly good. Like, really insanely good. But we're expecting patches now on opening day. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So is this something you guys are noticing as well? And that along with the massive iterative gameplay changes that are seeming to go on?
Absolutely. You see it more and more, almost the ship it now, fix it later. Certainly EA being the classic of something being just broken at launch and then fixing it as they go. I'm looking at you, SimCity. I'm looking at you.
We're all looking at you, various games out there. Okay. Go ahead, Steve.
I would agree that there are games that change. Extreme different changes in how the game functions, plays, and all they're keeping essentially is the lore or the concept behind the IP. And WoW did this from expansion to expansion. I think also it's fair to say that Guild Wars did this from 1 to 2, where the mechanics involved throughout the whole game of Guild Wars 1 is not the same mechanics as throughout Guild Wars 2. And if you played 1 expecting to get a new iteration of 1, you're not going to.
Mm-mm.
And if you're cool with the new action-based changes and the singular rather than dual class and all the other many changes they brought with their second installment, that's great. But if you wanted to see a revamped version of an older game, you can't get that. It's, I don't know if the studios believe in this trend universally or if it's specific into what we're looking at so much, and the games that do iterations just aren't as often in MMOs that get a lot of screen time. I'm thinking of like City of Villains for a moment, and that didn't change drastically from one issue to the next in my recollection. And I could be wrong, but
No,
they
it
added
didn't.
things that were new power set, augment power set, a little bit of different alteration to what you're doing, but essentially the core game mechanics stayed throughout the play.
And then they brought out the Architect.
Architect.
Yeah,
Completely revolutionized an MMO. Players
It was-
create MMO content.
I think it's still to this day one of the individually most groundbreaking pieces of content in an MMO ever,
I agree.
and they didn't capitalize on it.
Yeah.
Actually, I kind of think, unfortunately, that particular feature highlighted the problems inherent in the game.
in
So-
the game, in that it was
in their
largely
design,
a very repetitive grind fest.
Well, it wasn't. The thing is, it's expected to that particular game didn't quite try to say we're super special in the leveling process. But what happened with the Architect, for those of you who are unaware or unfamiliar with what the Architect was in COV, is you went into a building and you could literally write your own instance. Because the instances, generally speaking, were randomly generated, you put in your boss mobs, you got to design what they look like, you could write the quest text, you had 100% control, you could make it like a dungeon, you could make it like a single instance, and it scaled automatically for your group size. Now, unfortunately, that particular thing showed exactly how they wrote the game. And it was
Because
slightly
all of the missions were basically identical, just with a slightly different map and some slightly different enemies. And that was pretty much it.
sort of. But the thing is, when you went to create a boss, you got to create what they did in each phase. So you knew exactly where the phase triggers were. And it just sort of highlighted that there was no real originality to the design. But that's kind of leading us directionally into a different direction. So
Indeed.
go ahead, Steve.
That specific concept is true from my experience within game development, and more so with a game that is run by a computer than one that is run by the mind. The difference between a tabletop game and either a PC or console game.
Right.
The human mind can adapt and change and vary on the fly. If you want a computer program to work, it has to work within certain parameters. If you want it to then be accessible to users that aren't programmers themselves, you'd have to simplify those contingencies and triggers so that people could understand the mechanics. So they boiled game development for the instances in the Architect into certain parameters of what you can change and what cannot be changed. And there was enough random generation throughout that content to keep it fresh for a while, but it took a lot of the mystique out of how is a dungeon built in this game for a number of people, I'm sure. And once they started seeing the nuts and bolts, I think there are some people who didn't appreciate it as much as I did, being interested in the mechanics. And that's neither here nor there. The game doesn't exist anymore. It's tragic. But there are games that are still existing that are either carrying on the way they've been, and they were just bad, and giving them a second chance implies seeing if they've improved without the next expansion or the next game issue. And that's, again, to the Secret World, where they've had time, and technically they have had chapters or issues, whatever they're calling them, for having the time to improve upon the base game. But I don't think I would have tried it again unless there was someone saying, look at this game again, it's good, and it's on a financial discount. So
Okay.
if you're a company that puts out a game that succeeded for the first week and then crashed into a swamp, consider some good PR and some discounts to try once you have your game polished to the point where you're trying to regain an audience. You're going to need both.
Okay, so we've had a couple of things pretty much obvious to us. I mean, we've had a comment come in from Castile Cupcake, who specifically said it depends on the game, depends on the trust level with the game developer studio as to whether I'd bother giving a second chance to a game. We've discussed its cost can have an impact on trying things out. It can be the model of the game. And of course, it could also relate to someone saying they're interested or, hey, I'm bored. Let's go do something.
I can give one really big example of just some absolute, I can only give it, I apologize for the language here, but brass balls with what they attempted to get a second chance. Final Fantasy XIV.
You know what? That's a very, very good point. Now, see, that's the thing.
That's all I'm going to say. That took guts to say, you know what? We screwed this up big time. We're going to basically remake the game from scratch.
Now, see, I can get behind that. I mean, there is certain amount, there's something to be said for a game that says, okay, you know what? Screw it. We're going to destroy what we did and start over from fresh. And like you said, it does take balls to do it. And they were very successful, in my opinion.
And you know what? It seems to have paid off.
It's paid off in dividends. 2, there's another side of it, and that is when you have a developer trying to change the gameplay or the game sets, the entire design, because they're trying to add content to the game, and thus they feel they need to do that kind of expansive development, something people are used to seeing in World of Warcraft. And then you have 3, the people who bring forward and bring forth new changes and designs because it's innovative, not necessarily because it fits the game. Hello, architect. Sad.
Yeah, Warframe's a good example of your number 2. As they're slowly kind of bringing in and developing new ideas and more content for the game, they're having to bring in new systems, sometimes completely rework old systems to make things work. Like as things were going through and as the mobs got tougher and tougher to higher levels, certain weapons started becoming obsolete and only certain weapons could keep up because of the way the mob health and the mob armor particularly would scale. So only weapons that could ignore armor remained viable as mobs scaled higher and higher and higher. So they completely reworked the entire health and damage system from scratch. Made it more interesting as well by adding all new different damage types, combination damage types. It was really good. They've just recently gone back and started reworking the whole melee combat system. You know, which for a game about space ninjas, you're kind of wondering, why didn't you kind of do that to begin with? But anyway.
Yeah, that's a kind of crazy one. Plus, there's also, you know, there's one thing that I go back to games for, and I kind of want to bring this up because of something that Gothic Slicer said. Oh, Gothic Slicer, how I feel thy pain. So, Gothic Slicer gave Tor another chance. Okay?
Republic.
Tor. Now, here's the thing. I have the collector's edition of Tor. And I got heavily into it, but then I had to put games aside because I had to be an adult for a little bit. I had to finish my master's degree, and that meant games can't exist because time does not allow for it in a master's degree. It just doesn't quite work that way.
Doesn't work, doesn't compute.
So I put the game away, and then they completely changed everything. They decided to go free to play. When I finally got some free time, and I think it was just last year, I believe, Steve, decided to step back into Tor to see what was going on because I was rather enthusiastic about what was going on. And what smacked me in the face and hurt was the fact that I couldn't wear the gear that I had gotten because I wasn't a subscriber.
Mm-hmm.
So the gear that I had worked hard for was taken away from me. Now that is a design choice for a payment model, which is bad.
Yeah. Tor is an odd one because Tor is now on its third chance. It had the initial release, which didn't work out so well for it. It then had its initial free-to-play offering, which was an unholy abomination. It is all you can really say about that because that payment model was horrific.
I don't know what they were thinking. I really don't.
TA, who knows? And then the third chance, their second free-to-play offering, which is altogether far more reasonable and actually appears to be being quite successful for them, which is good. But they've learnt the hard way on that one.
So they've changed their model. I haven't been back in Tor in a while because
this is Gazzy things because I saw the
it's
first
Gazimov's fault. Remember this, folks.
I saw the first free-to-play offering and just went nope. But apparently, according to Gazzy, they've changed it again and it's far more reasonable. And apparently, it's relatively successful for them now, and they've got a decent player base that's ticking over nicely now. But
interesting.
I've only got his word to go. I've only got his word to go on for that, but it's generally reliable, so I trust it.
You know what's crazy? Considering we're talking about second chances, I'm hearing this and I'm like, I really wonder what they've done. I think I'm going to have to reinstall the game and go find out. So, you know, that's the thing. You know, I believe in iterative development. I believe in things growing. I believe in innovation. I like it when developers kind of push off that giant cliff that they're working on to build their formula. I like that. But I think as a developer, as a designer, as someone who builds applications, it can be so hard to go too far and not balance on the cliff. Just bloody plunge off into like Cthulhu's mouth, you know?
So a thought comes to mind regarding both second chances and first chances to a degree in this day and age with as much media coverage as we have about games that are out or coming out. Do you ever blind buy anymore? Or is it always you do some research before you purchase, whether it's a subscription purchase or whether it's a new game, new IP? Like, do you wait a bit to get some previews and some reviews and some actual in-game footage? Or if they have a free demo version, you go play that? Like, I know that's my buying trend now, that I'm not going to blind buy. I am going to become an informed consumer before I sink money into something.
Were you ever a blind buyer?
Oh yeah, for a while. I would trust the IP of certain publishers that when they came out with the next game, I'd try it, and that's why we have horror stories like Master of Orion 3, Armada 2526. There are some other ones that I can't recall at the moment, but just these horrible, I played that for 20 minutes, and then it was unplayable.
Aliens Colonial Marines.
Can you tell what type of games these two like just from the things that they are listing here?
Okay,
I'll give you an MMO that I couldn't play, but it wouldn't help.
Can I give how, by and large, the people on a whole are happy to blind buy and don't care?
Okay.
Wait a
look
sec.
at Steam Take a look right now at Steam. Top 2 sellers: Wolfenstein: The New Order, Watch Dogs. Top 2 selling games on Steam right now, this very second.
Not quite blind buying, though.
Really?
Really?
Are either of those two out yet? Nope.
Okay, I think we need to define blind buying, Blind buying to me is the Steam summer sale when they package together 40 games. You don't even know what the name of 39 of them are. You see one game, and you're like,
really blind,
holy
Chelsea.
cow, that is an awesome game. And the entire pack
but
is
it's
on sale
about-
for £2. I am buying a lot.
But they're about 30p each. You don't care.
But
Honestly,
that's blind buying to me. Blind buying is going into the old-fashioned video store. Something has been used and resold, and you just go, meh. Never heard of it. Meh.
Yeah,
People know what those two games are. There is gameplay footage already out there. There are reviews out there already. There are previews out there already. It's not as blind as you think it is.
But I see your account. This.
Are you going to raise me?
And I'm going to raise you. Duke Nukem Forever and Aliens Colonial Marines.
Duke Nukem
Where we
Forever came out with a demo.
Demos are good.
Yeah, and it was
to show you how bad they are.
But the thing was, is that the demo was a small section of a game that seemed all right and was that demo section was okay.
No.
The problem was then the rest.
No, it wasn't.
It was horrible.
Duke
Anyway.
Nukem Forever's demo was horrid. Did you really like it?
I don't know. I only played like the first half of the demo, which was just that little contained section against that one boss, and that was quite fun.
Walking around, urinating in a stall and drinking some beer and talking to your hooker girlfriend does not qualify as a demo.
Sounds a little bit like Deadpool.
I was on about the bit in the arena, in the football stadium with the giant boss.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite good. Apparently, I think there was another bit afterwards, and I didn't get a chance to play that. And I think that was what most people complained about.
Okay, we've got.
But either way, Aliens Colonial Marines. I'm sorry. We thought we knew what we were getting. We had the marketing. We had the previews, and that game was horrible. Absolutely horrible. So you can never entirely trust what we supposedly know about a game until it's launched.
Okay, fair enough on that for some. I don't think that is the majority. I think that is the minority that proves the rule. That proves me right.
I have to admit that as much as I'm unwilling to blind buy a title these days, they do occasionally catch me if I've seen some preview footage and they have good PR and a couple other factors that come into play, but the percentage of my blind buying has gone from 100% to like 1% of the time it's going to happen. And it can still happen. But most of the time, with a second chance, if you're going to want your game to be re-seen after you've made some modifications, you can't ask for the same as an intellectual property that's coming out fresh with some good hype and is going to be a strong standalone. If they've already tried it and they've already said no once, incentivize, get some good PR, as I said before, and get it into the hands of the players, like demos for free, or even someone was saying free to play. I know that's out there for MMOs. Not everything works that way, where you're going to need to give some games that aren't based on subs. You buy the box and you play the game, and if you bought the box and you hated it, you should be able to get the patch for free that they updated for. Like, that's essentially what Elemental did to me. Was I bought their initial game. It was garbage. They were working on it. As they came out with new iterations, they said, here's a code for the game. Please try it. And, keep supporting us. Keep interested in this title. We're gonna make it right.
Okay. Two things have come from our amazing viewers. By the way, can I just point out that you guys are awesome? A couple of things have come out that I want us to tackle because it kind of drives into this. We were talking earlier about how we live in a day and age where we expect zero-day patching and we expect iterative development on the games that we get, even if they are single-player games. Perfect example of that. How many games have you looked at recently that you have bought that are brand new on Steam that come with a season pass? Okay, so this kind of boggles my brain. It boggles my brain because it mixes into two different areas in which you kind of have to sit there and I guess we'll just debate it out in a second. But one, you buy a season pass, which gives you a certain amount of DLC content for free. and the developers decide what order that DLC content comes out. So you are stuck with whatever seasonal pass or seasonal things they think you should have for the DLC, and that could be some kind of major, huge thing. Although updates don't always count, it's usually the expansions they're talking about. The second thing that is in relation to this is that's a blind buy because you have no bloody clue what's going to be coming out. And it's a little different than the pay to gain pre-access for a game syndrome. Now, this comes from Dist, and by the way, Suliko, I'm going to repeat your statement for Alris. Aliens, colonial marines, a stain on my memory. Just thought I'd share that with you, just so that you know.
It was horrible.
And I may censor that out, by the way, guys. I may. That's from Bean and Hersey. But yes, so from Face Palms and Gothic Slicer and from all of you guys, amazing comments. Bring more. We do have some questions we will get to. But so talk to me, guys. What are your thoughts on the black hole that has been created by the Steam environment? Yeah, let's focus on Season Pass.
Should we just go with BioShock Infinite and just say that is the worst offender in terms of the single-player content Season Pass? The immediate one.
See, I don't necessarily we need to stick with that because we could get really technical and go old school, go back and do something like Mass Effect, all the DLC that you could purchase for that.
Yeah,
didn't have a season pass for it, but
you weren't buying in advance.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
But all the Mass Effect stuff, it came out and you could choose to do it or not. BioShock Infinite was just, here's a season pass. No, we're not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah.
Now, in the end, numbers 2 and 3 apparently are really, really good because that's the stuff where they take the new characters but go back to Rapture with them and do a load of stuff there. And I've not played that, so I can't comment too much.
I am going to simply say, if you have not played them...
Yeah. By and large, the response to those has been very, very good. But then the initial offering was not, because it was just more, here is an arena with a bunch of rails and a fight.
To be fair, that follows it follows a bit of the genre. I mean, the genre itself is on rails.
Ho, ho, ho.
Literally. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, they got the pun. Pseudo got the pun in. Pseudo got the pun in. Okay.
So, this season pass business and DLC business and all this. DLC is a thing of our times at this point. They're not going to give you a whole game and then build their next game and give you the next whole game. That time has passed for the majority of publishers. I'll say some of them might do that, and I appreciate all of those publishers tremendously because I want to buy a finished, full, completed game that doesn't need me to play test it for them after I've bought the game and report to them there are things that need fixing, and then they say you need to pay us another game's worth of dollar amount to get the rest of the game. Ha ha. I don't like that. I prefer the it's all done, but I am definitely not a fan of Season Pass. Anything where you're going to, again, blind buy for, I don't know what content is coming, but I want to get all the content, so I'm going to give them more money. This seems like a bad purchasing method. And you were talking about Mass Effect for a second, where they had DLC. I liked Mass Effect's DLC in the sense that about 80% of it that I encountered was free. Oh, you bought our game? We got some new content out. You just need to download it. And then some of it was you have to pay for, and a lot of those I chose not to, because you didn't need them for the multiplayer experience. But anything that was inherently part of the multiplayer experience, which was the long game part, from my perspective, I don't think they charge for, and I could be wrong.
No, you could spend credits, or you could spend real money to buy the credits to get the packs.
There was that horrible, here are microtransactions, you can buy more packs, but that's kind of insidious creep that EA is putting into all their games at the moment. But you didn't have to do any of that, and all of the multiplayer editions were entirely free.
Yeah, and that's
all of the all of the stuff you paid for was extra single-player content.
Right. And that's kind of
Story.
the DLC for a single-player game. Well, didn't I play the game and beat it already? You just added something new that I'm supposed to pay for. I'm probably not the guy that's going to buy that. It's not my thing. But if it's multiplayer and it's free, that's a sign that you're keeping me interested in the game for a longer period of time.
Now, see, one could argue that depending upon the game developer, depending upon the game type, that's actually helping out the way you would, say, a Kickstarter campaign or something along those lines. You know, you're basically contributing money to a grand total that is ensuring that developers get paid so that they can make the content or what have you. However, I have to... As much as I love you, Gearbox, and as much as I love you, Claptrap, you Borderlands people are naughty. Very, very naughty. Now, I saw an interview with them where they had stated that when they released Borderlands 1, they had made the mistake of mentioning pre-launch that they had already decided what the DLC will be for the game.
Yeah.
Now, I understand the desire for DLC. It turns a single player game into something that can make future profit for a company beyond just simple initial sales. I get that. I do not believe it was wrong for them to mention it, and I do believe that people need to understand that to truly develop a game, you need to have those iterative processes, and you need to plan way the bloody hell in advance. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who are unaware of how all this works, check out our upcoming Thursday show, because it's game development by game devs. But, you know, I understand that, and I get that. But the backlash is massive from the community who, one, doesn't understand that, but I think, two, is feeling slightly jilted because, like you said earlier, Steve, why should I pay for something that should have been in the game to begin with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still get this classic argument now of, why are you making new stuff? Why don't you fix the bugs? And then, of course, people don't realize artists aren't coders. Artists are still gonna keep making the artwork and the new models and the new content and the new maps. Why? Because they can't fix bugs. They couldn't fix bugs if their life was on the line, because they don't know how. It's a simple answer, but it's the same sort of idea of, you get to the end of a game, you do pre-production. So what do those pre-production guys do? They sit there twiddling their thumbs, or do you get them doing pre-production on the first piece of DLC?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Exile did the same thing with, they did pre-production on Wasteland 2. They didn't have any more to do, so what do? They release a new Kickstarter and do Torment, Tides of Numenera. Why? So they don't have to lay off a bunch of staff.
That, I think, is key. However, what are your thoughts about people paying to get pre-access to a game? I mean, we just recently reviewed, or I should say previewed, Endless Legend. And that is in, very much so, pre-alpha access. And yes, you do pay to get in.
But you're buying the game. You're not just paying for access to get a head start. You're buying the game when it's still in development, which means this is unfinished, but we're working on it, and you know we're working on it, and you can be included in that process if you wish to be. I imagine there's even a place you can go and comment. Let them know your thoughts on what they're doing. But in the sense of alpha and beta testing, you need people to see it in order to fix some of the stuff your internal team doesn't catch. And if you're going to market a game and you need to pay your devs because they're eating ramen, then you might want to release it in that early stage, get some people in, give them a discount, make them understand it's going to be a while before it's completed. But of the different games that I've seen review played, that one feels fine, There are other games that I've played in alpha that I was not able to play again after the day one of this is an earnest try, and then it's no, I'll come back when it's finished. This is wrong.
Kenshi.
That's one of them.
It's
sure.
got a good idea. It's prepping itself up and advertising itself to be a sandbox MMO. Got in, I think, even before like the 0.25 beta or alpha. I mean, like
early.
really, really early, and it hurt. It hurt badly.
But also the early access model, I think, is being horribly, horribly overused. But for some games and some genres, I think it helps. For example, the big success story of early access, which has then largely spawned everyone else doing it, is Prison Architect.
Prison Architect is a damn good game.
It is. But it's also, I think, a game that benefits from the early access model, rather than just being a cash-in to get some money before it's out. It is a game that is improved by this constant iterative adding of features and testing of features as people play, because, well, that's what the game is.
Strategy game.
It's like an old like Theme Hospital or the old theme park.
Roller coaster theme park.
You make a new game, you make your new prison, and then you test it out, you play it, you come back when the new update and the new features get added, and you make a new one, you try the new features out, and it actually benefits from that kind of iterative development.
Simulation games do very, very well in that.
Yeah, there's a game I'm really looking forward to coming out soon that, for me, is going to be a day one early access buy. And that really happens very, very rarely for me. And that's Clockwork Empires by a little company called Gaslamp Games, who you may know as the guys who make Dungeons of Dreadmore.
Right. Yep.
Clockwork Empires is their new game that is basically SimCity crossed with Dwarf Fortress.
Which is just obviously going to make it skyrocket, because that's how people are actually describing it to each other. And yes, it's two games combining together. We'll see if it's a flop or a fail. I'll be really eager to find out. Maybe we should do that for a perspective, but anyway.
Success.
Oh, please. I'm so looking forward to that, though. But the whole idea is it's the idea of failure is fun. It's about how you fail on the story and spinning the plates as long as you can till it all comes crashing down around your ears. And that game's looking really good. And I follow their dev blogs on it as they go through. And they're a wonderfully hilarious development team as well. It's like, today our dev blog is going to be, let's write how we found a bug in the database, but we're going to write it in the style of a D&D session.
Or let's talk about a bug that we found and how we described it to Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven.
The Raven. Yeah, that was the one I think I linked to you the other week.
Yeah.
It's like, here are our post-GDC headaches. Oh, and we found a bug at the same time. But we've, in doing so, rewritten Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven word by word to describe it, and it's just like, these guys are brilliant.
See, that's the thing, when you have that kind of in a way PR, it actually works very well for you, and that's something we can get into in another show's the PR thing. What I want to do is answer the questions that have come into us.
But it gets to the thing with that, again, I think is going to be a game that benefits from that early access model of the iterative new features and new things that come in. Well, that's great, because you start a new colony and you try out your colony with the new stuff.
And this comes to a point of second chances. Would you rather a game revamp itself completely, change everything overhaul-wise, or would you rather them improve upon their previous premise, make it better, fix the bugs, polish it up, take it to the next stage in that iterative process, rather than scrapping it, go back to ground zero, and rebuild in a completely new direction? If you're looking for giving a game a second chance, which would you prefer? Because I'd prefer a game sticking with its guns, staying with where it started, so I understand that's the game I'm trying to play. I just want it to be fixed.
I think for me, in all honesty, and this is such a cop-out answer, It really depends on the genre. It is utterly the genre, to me, that makes or breaks it. So, for example, when I pick up Civ from Sid Meier, because there's been news of a new Civ coming out, and I'm not going to go into it, not going to get into detail about it, but I have already in my brain... Whoosh. Don't make me pull out the newspaper. I will pull out the newspaper. Sheesh.
I'm excited.
Yes. So basically, we have these different genres of games, but when I buy Civ, I know what I'm getting. When I buy a Sid Meier Civ game, I understand the premise. I understand that things will be implemented differently. They'll have a different way of, say, building up religion, or the different types of wars that you could have. The units might be a little different. The Civs themselves are going to be different. I get that. So in a genre like a strategy, a 4X in particular, if you've got a particular IP, stick with the bloody IP. You can make your modifications to it, but doesn't mean you have to overhaul everything. However, if you're going to bring out a new game, please try to change it up enough that my brain doesn't sit there and go, this is like your other game. Because why did you just make this next one? Because a really good example of something that I think is being done successfully is something along the lines of what's going on with Endless. Endless Space is a very specific type of 4X. Endless Legend, by the exact same developers, another 4X with a different idea. That makes sense to me. They could have taken the entire side and strategy for how they wanted to handle combat, how they wanted to handle exploitation, and everything else, and thrown it in to an Endless Space genre. But I think it would have destroyed Endless Space. I think what they've got works good in their particular IP that they've built for this. So genre of game will impact whether I believe that they need to stick with their IP and branch to innovative ideas or overhaul completely. And I think that pretty much sums up my stance. Alris.
Yep. I'll very much, there are certain genres I will give much more leeway on things than others. Like a strategy game or a co-op, we'll say co-op shooter sort of a thing. I really like Warframe. I'll say it. I love the game.
I love Borderlands.
Borderlands.
Warframe is a lot of fun.
The Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. I love stuff like that. So I love cooperative stuff. I'll give stuff like that a lot more pass than if I pick up the latest
Masters of Orion,
shooter, whatever. Well, no, the latest whatever it is, the whichever shooter the Xbox generation they're sort of playing these days. I think at the moment it's Titan. Yeah, the moment I think it's Titanfall. If that doesn't click with me, I'm just gonna drop it and not pick it up again. Admittedly, I'm quite enjoying Titanfall. I do play it a bit and things, but like COD, COD was old 3 iterations ago, and it hasn't actually really changed.
See,
since.
That's the thing. I followed the Battlefield franchise for a while. You know which one my favorite one was? I think it was like Battlefield 1948 or something like that. To me,
Battlefield 2 guy.
That was amazing. All the other ones, I'm just like, meh. To me, when you start doing that repetitive thing, just make bloody DLC instead. I mean, seriously.
Now, Activision do that. They're now selling you the map. They're now selling you the additional maps as Season Pass.
Yes, and as we know in this group, we sort of have a small problem with season passes and things like that. 1942, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. Right, now, rolled up newspaper time because it's time.
Go.
I know.
Go.
This is going to become a feature with us. So we have
I'm telling you to talk.
I am talking. Silence. I kill you.
Okay.
I just tease. So we have 3 questions that I'm going to throw out. Let me talk. Both of you. I'm just gonna mute you both. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send the question to you guys, and you'll each get one question because there's currently 3 questions, and we'll see where it goes from. So the first question that we're going to do is Robots Hates Me. And Steve, I'm going to throw this at you.
Mhm.
So how about a change to a game that doesn't so much change the gameplay, but definitely changes who plays the game to the point where players leave the game? For example, looking for group functions in WoW, or they're looking for raid functions in WoW. What about changes like that?
Are we asking if they're good, bad, or other, or are we asking?
Or would you use, or I mean, do you think that they would? We were talking earlier about, because this comes from an earlier part of the episode, we were talking about how people consume the content and then just disappear.
Right.
Or a game change comes in and all of a sudden the entire culture of the game has changed. And now this is more specific to MMOs than to single players. So it's along those lines. When a game produces something like that and then keeps it, but do you think that should allow, like, if they bring out some kind of new feature, should people come back and test it? Like, if they made a change to it, should they come back in?
Well, when it's regarding grouping, which is what the looking for raid looking for group thing is, it's helping your accessibility to find other people to play with. So if you didn't have an established guild and you were playing mostly the solo content in an MMO, I could see how a feature like that could bring you back. The ease of access to find people to play with could be new and different to you. Speaking of WoW specifically, in my past, I was able to pick that game up and put it down month by month and come back to it whenever I wanted to, because regardless of the changes made, it was a stable platform of a game and I understood what was going on. Kind of like the concept of the Civ franchise has a certain amount of stability throughout its IP. Warcraft is such a juggernaut of a game that it's not really going anywhere as far as I'm concerned. It's going to stay around and going to have a dedicated fan base, and regardless of the changes, a percentage is going to stick with it. I haven't dabbled in the looking for raid and looking for, well, I've done looking for group in the past, but Josie, you and I used to looking for group, and the 2 of us would carry whatever 3 people we ran into, and you would be second on deeps as the healer, and I would be first on deeps as the tank, and that was our experience with pugs.
But
not
that's
terribly
design
promising.
Choice.
Not terribly promising. But looking for raid, we saw a video recently, which you mentioned earlier in the show, where it shows they're not accountable like they used to be regarding you're part of this raid, you need to pull your weight, or you're hurting the rest of the raid. And if you haven't seen the content, you want to see the content, those features are helpful within World of Warcraft, but in other games, adding a multiplayer feature can be amazingly positive and not the same amount of detriment as the flack being thrown at World of Warcraft for its choices.
Yeah.
And specifically, the game I would highlight is not an MMO, it's Mass Effect 3. The entire IP was a single-player RPG, and the end game that they produced most recently was and a multiplayer aspect, so you can keep playing this game with your friends and not just solo. That was a good choice to me.
I can completely agree with that. Very, very, very much so.
So if you haven't checked out a game and then they add a multiplayer feature that they didn't have before, and it was a game IP you liked anyways, yeah, it's worth checking out because you're going to be able to play with friends. And that's what the longevity of games is all about. Being able to have a social community of players who are interacting with one another in a positive way. If it's all trolls, then I advise not feeding them and abandoning it with reckless abandon to the point of lighting it on fire and letting it fall over and burn down, sink in the swamp.
Okay. Now your question, Alris. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
This is from Sulako, who asks,
Hello, Sulako.
is there a difference from alpha access to help the game development and early access as a marketing tool? She's thinking about Arcade and Elite Dangerous.
Yes, straight out. The marketing beta is something that's come out in recent times they call it a beta, but really it's as feature complete as it's going to be. Any changes are going to be minimal from that point. It's purely just, let's get people in and show it us, and it's...
I think somebody with a horn agrees with you. That was so well timed.
But MMOs are the worst offenders of the marketing beta. Even WildStar Open Beta was marketing beta. It wasn't really a beta.
Yeah, but see,
It was, let's show this off to people and get as many people to see it. It wasn't about actual testing,
yes.
really.
And believe me, at some point in time, we will be having a show about regioning, because, yeah.
Oh, we've got stories about WildStar and regioning.
That
was not well done. That was not well done.
Oh, it makes my heart break. It really does. But yes, so there's that particular one. And the question that I am left with is from Bean 007. Take, for instance, Battlefield 4. They now have, per se, test servers that allow certain people with the Prem Pass to log in to help find problems with the game. So basically, BF4 is still in beta? People purchased a beta?
Nope.
No. Go ahead. I'll let you handle this.
Bugs. Every game will have bugs. No game will ever be completely bug-free. Not today, anyway. Heck,
I know a game would be bug-free. Ants.
Not even the days of...
I'll hide. Go ahead.
I hear crickets. But anyway, no, to be fair, very rarely, even in the days of like the Spectrum and the Atari 2600, when games were tiny, tiny little things compared to what they are now, were games ever really 100% bug-free. Nowadays, it's never going to happen. 99 little bugs in the code, 99 little bugs, take one down, patch it around, 107 bugs in the code. They're too big, they're too complex. No matter what you do, something's going to go wrong somewhere. It's just an inevitability of life. You just got to keep it down to where it's manageable. And test servers for Premium Pass members, I'd argue that's a really good idea, because they're people who've already bought in. They've already invested in your game. So they have more of a vested interest in finding the bugs and helping you replicate them so they can be fixed than, say, somebody who hasn't invested further in your game. That's the idea behind a lot of the early access ones that were on Kickstarter.
Pre-purchase and things like that as well.
Like your Total Annihilation, they you can buy in now, but it's going to be £100 because that's what we charge the Kickstarter guys. And by and large, we only really want you playing right now if you really want to fix the bugs.
See, unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand how to fix the bugs or even suggest the bugs. So many people want just a finished product. Bean's pointing out, I never said it wasn't bug-free. The fact of the matter is BF4 wasn't a step forward, but a step backwards.
Well,
not
you can
so
make
certain, Gothic.
On that. BF4 had more of the issue of EA, of the launch it now, fix it later mentality that EA seems to have lately. But that's another argument and things. But the idea of, is it still in beta? People didn't purchase the beta. No, people didn't really purchase the beta strictly. But I think that idea of having Premium Pass guys to log in and help find the problems is the better idea, because, again, the people that bought in, the people invested, they're just going to be more interested in actually finding those problems.
Fair enough. And on that, I'm going to then drag us to a little bit of a close on this and go over a couple of bits of news and things. 'Cause news and things. Smiley face.
Watch perspectives.
Yes, we might as well throw that in there. If you want to watch these two guys go head to head and me occasionally wield a paper to whack them on the nose with when they get a little out of hand, you're going to want to go to youtube.com/MMOBuff. We have a whole new series on there called the MMOBuff Perspective. It is YouTube only. So something for you to go watch in your free time. Now, tonight we've talked a lot about second chances, and a lot of things impact and influence our second chances. I would like to just personally throw out there that if you're not going to give a game a second chance, I get it. But sometimes it's really worth it. The secret world deserves a second chance if you haven't given it one. If you've already got it, go. Just saying. Can't tell you how many people sat back afterwards and went, whoa, there were so many changes. So this is me giving the secret world some props. Those in the Illuminati, lol. Those in the Dragons, lol. And those in the Templars. I'm in it for the colors. So this week, oh my gosh, do I have some crazy stuff. Someone needs to draw Lobzilla with a paper. We need to get Katamari on that. That's what we need to do, because Katamari made me this awesome Lobzilla poster, but a Lobzilla with a newspaper. Whack, whack. Put it on the walrus, not the walrus. Blech. Anyway, so coming up this week.
I'm a bit rotund, but I'm not quite that big.
So something that we got coming up is tomorrow we have the campfire. It is a reverse campfire. Blank Space, Screenager, and myself are being grilled by a new guild forming for Wildstar, known as Death and Cake, which is really crazy. And we're going to have Jikon from there. Or Cake and Death, something along those lines. Something close to them. I've got a lot of death names in my head. It's not my fault, I promise you. But yes, your Twitch is broken. Mine's a little bit twisted as well, but eh. So yes, tomorrow we're going to be grilled in reverse as we try to offer our personal suggestions and history, mistakes, and successes for this guild that has questions for us. And my gosh, I was looking at the topics and my brain just went, explode. Seriously exploded. But if you've got any questions or scenarios for the campfire, do me a favor. Send them in to voice@MMOBuff.TV. Okay? Okay. Next up on Wednesday, we have the Blizzard forecast. We have a whole bunch of craziness coming at this. So, on the Blizzard forecast, Mizpah, Parv from Yogscast, Hearth Trollden, one of the big Hearthstone Twitch streamers, and potentially a few others. Squinty face. Play.
One important who's also with the camp.
I'm not there yet. Who are... Oh gosh, did I forget Blank Space?
Yes.
Why do I keep blanking on Blank Space?
Apparently the Viking King is a ninja.
Apparently you like to blank him out.
That's not it at all. But they might be ending up playing some more Heroes of the Storm. We've got myself, Marsh, and potentially Hearth Trollden, speaking about Hearthstone. And we have Blank Space, Trollden, and Mizpah going into Warlords of Draenor. And we'll see if they have any response to that video on World of Warcraft and apathy. Because I'd be curious to see. I did throw it at them. As to whether or not they take it with it and run, I don't know. Thursday, different time. Not at 8 p.m., 1 p.m. BST.
I'll still show up at 8.
Well, they're going to miss it, aren't they? Yeah. At 1 p.m., we have the very first episode of The Data Mine. Like I said, this is a show by developers for developers of games. And boy, do we have a lot of guests coming up on that from all over the place. Everything from legal to financial advice to development advice to engine advice, everything. We have so much ideas and stuff's coming that I'm just going to simply say, you want to be there so that you can mine the data with us. Cheesy smile. Friday's Cosmotronic is canceled. I repeat, Friday's Cosmotronic is canceled. Friday's Cosmotronic is canceled. I've said it 3 times now. It's still going to be forgotten. Friday's Cosmotronic is canceled. Sorry about that, but it's true.
Why is it cancelled?
It is canceled because many members of the team are going to be at a wedding.
Fair enough. That happens.
So Friday's Cosmotronic is canceled. However, I will state this. We are going to be having a bit of a natter, and we will be bringing you a very special use next week from Aiko, and I can only keep my mouth shut about this. All I'm going to simply say is, "Yee!" And we'll leave it at that.
I don't know. I remember the old Wear Radio days where we may have done a show from Total Biscuit's house after his wedding.
Not going to do that in this case because I ain't lugging our equipment around. You can, like...
Well, you know, the wedding reception was at his house, so we only had to go upstairs and do it, so...
Yeah, not happening in this case in any way, shape, or form. But so what is going to happen on Friday? Nothing. Saturday, however, we will still be bringing you Top Draw. And this is going to be part 2 in the look at Battle for Gia. If you have missed the first one, you're going to want to check it out. And oh my gosh, is it a different game? Then next week on Monday, we're back with this glorious show. And I have a feeling we'll be looking into a couple of different topics. Everything from region splitting, which is a little frustrating, to other things that might be brought up. But if you've got any comments, questions, concerns, or anything else along those lines, just get in touch with us, voice at MMOBuff.TV. Now...
They missed a live show. Where should they go?
I don't know, Steve. Where should they go?
Thinking it has a tube in it.
You better pick the right one, because oh my goodness.
YouTube.
YouTube what?
What's out there?
This is what happens when I bring the men behind the curtain who keep MMO Buff going, like, to the front of the curtain. I get trolled. That's all I'm going to say. So, yes, if you can, please show your support for the show if you like what we're doing by, subscribing, following, sending us messages, things like that. And
Something that, doesn't happen every day anyway. We just get to do it on stream. Yeah.
This is so true. I am so picked on. But anyway, yes, you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on Google+. You can find us on Anouk. No matter which way you look at it, no matter which way you slice it, no matter which way you dice it, no matter how you try to fix that Rubik's Cube, because that is a really cool Google Doodle, might I add. I spent a little time earlier today fixing and completing my Rubik's Cube. Awesome fun. But thank you so much for coming. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I don't know when you're going to see these two spitball and diametrically opposed bearded duo.
Watch perspective.
Watch perspective. It is actually well worth the watch. We have some gameplay footage in there. There is some gameplay footage on how to defeat ice giants.
Silly X.
There's also some gameplay footage about a couple of other things that were mentioned. Maybe. So he shows his fangs at us, and both Aussie and I just sit back and wave. So yes, thank you guys so much for showing up. Don't make me pull out the newspaper. I actually think I have a newspaper. Don't make me pull out the electronic newspaper.
Wow. That would cause significant damage to your electronic device.
It might. But yes, on that note, I want to thank you all for showing up, and we will see you guys very, very soon. So give yourselves a chance for saying goodbye.
Goodbye.
DOBD. I think that actually really fits you guys. Diametrically opposed bearded duo. DOBD. Dobbed. I respect that. You respect Motiga? Yeah? And yes, we'll see you guys. And obviously, this is me, because I'm me, just saying Toodle Pip. Good night, everyone.